Good afternoon, everybody. It is this Monday, December 1st, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is Admissions Live. I am your host, Chris Dorso, and today on the show we are talking with Bob Longmire and Karen Full and Rick Montgomery from Longmire and Company, and we are going to finally find out the answer to the question: are colleges and universities better at customer service than banks and hotels? And the answer is going to startle you, I promise. But we're going to talk a little bit about how we can do our jobs better. We talk a lot about customer service on what we do dealing with the public all the time, and Longmire and Company did a really interesting study on just how well we're doing and just how much students and their families and their interactions with us on the customer service end, how much that impacts their college search decisions. So lots of great information coming. First, a little housekeeping to take care of. Admissions Live is part of the Higher Ed Live network. Higher Ed Live is a series of professional development web shows and podcasts, always free and accessible to you in our archives at higheredlive.com and on iTunes. You can be a part of our broadcast by tuning in live and also sharing your insights and questions using the Higher Ed Live hashtag on Twitter. And you can receive weekly updates with live show dates and times by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter. Today's show would not be possible without the support of all of my colleagues here at Stony Brook University, as well as our friends at M. Stoner. All of our Higher Ed Live shows, including Admissions Live, are produced by M. Stoner, a marketing and communications firm that works with education institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and more. M. Stoner and the rest of the world, quite frankly, want you to stop using PDFs and start getting smart with online forms. Learn more about the challenges that higher education faces putting forms online, and see some real-world successes about how schools have done it well during M. Stoner's webinar, which will be tomorrow, and there is a link that is going out through the Higher Ed Live account now that has subscription information for tomorrow's webinar. Face it, from the very beginning of your career, you've never had that professional stamp that says you're an expert in enrollment management. And now you have that opportunity. Abilene Christian University's new graduate certificate in enrollment management provides 4 highly interactive online courses that can be completed in as little as 10 months. Combined with a unique residency component, the program is designed to help enrollment management professionals expand their knowledge and give them a credential to set themselves apart in the field. Visit acu.edu/enrollment management to learn more. College visits made simple. The mission at Welcome to College is to help students find colleges where they will flourish. And as such, Welcome to College has created the Marv Fitology Workshop for campus tour guides. The program weaves the science of happiness with the power of the campus tour. And if we're talking customer service today, campus tours have got to be right at the top of that list. So tweet welcome, the number 2 college, welcome to college to learn more. Zinch is a service of Chegg that helps colleges and universities save time and money while connecting with best fit students throughout the college search. Zinch partners save up to 90% of the recruitment cost of generating a single enrollment for their institution while putting students first in their recruitment outreach. Email outreach@zinch.com, or you can tweet @socialadmission to get in touch with your institution's dedicated Zinch representative today. So customer service, we've been students are students and parents are parents, but this is a major financial investment for them, and as such, it's very important that we think of students as customers, and with that I would like to bring in our guests for this afternoon's show. From Longmire and Company, please welcome Bob Longmire, and please welcome Karen Full and Rick Montgomery. So welcome, everybody.
Well, glad to be here.
I have no sound from you guys.
Maybe we were all talking at the same time. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Hang on a second. I've got sound. Hello?
I'm here.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hey, there you are. Oh,
okay.
All right,
We're
that
all
was my
good.
fault. Righto. Technical difficulties right at the top of the show. Way to go, Chris.
Hey,
welcome, guys. Sorry.
Pass that real quick. Thanks so much for having us, Chris. We appreciate it.
Of course. So, Bob, introduce your crew here.
Well, we introduced the company first. Longmire and Company is a company that's been working in higher ed for about 20 years now. Our client base are public and private universities all over the United States, from Alaska to Florida and Hawaii to Maine and all points in between that. Our client base is an exact reflection of the industry in the four-year marketplace. It's the the same number or same percentage of private universities and public universities. That's our client base. We work really at the lower end of the funnel typically. We are working with colleges to help them recruit students more conveniently and efficiently once they reach a certain point in the funnel. We don't load the funnel for the client, but we will, once it's loaded, we help them convert. And so let me introduce Karen and Rick. Karen Full is an enrollment strategist with Longmire and Company. She has a long history in enrollment management and higher education. We're so pleased to have her. Rick Montgomery also has years of experience in higher education, marketing and recruiting too, on the vendor side, working with colleges, and he brings a lot to the table in terms of helping our clients recruit and retain students. So with that, that's Longmire and Company.
Cool. So welcome, guys. So student as customer. So why is this such an anathema to higher ed?
Well, for some people it is. For others it isn't. I think it's really, let me tell you a little story. We were on a campus in Wisconsin once, and we spent the entire day in an interactive training workshop that we were doing with faculty members. And if there's any contingent in a college that doesn't like to call a student a customer, it's faculty. And it was really interesting because some of them, about half of them, that word was abhorrent to them. For the other half, their position was, we either think of these folks as students, as customers, or we're going to die on the vine because they have choices. And if we don't serve them well, then we're going to have a hard time competing. And I think what happens is that a lot of people, especially faculty, have a sense that somehow viewing the student as a customer is the equivalent of coddling that student. But it's not. We're not suggesting, and I don't think anybody is suggesting who advocates great customer service for students, that anybody be coddled. But what we're talking about here is treating that student as we would like to be treated if we were a customer buying the services of a college or any other company or business. Do we get our calls returned on time? Does the person who is trying to help us today understand what we need? Have they made an effort to understand what we need? If we have a problem, do they follow up and try to fix it? Do they check back with us to make sure that it was resolved? Those are customer service issues. So that's what a customer is. It's a student who just needs to be well served.
I think that's a really important point. And I just this past weekend saw the Ivory Tower movie, which is not news, quite frankly, to anybody who works in higher ed. But why should we think we're any different? You know, just because we're a college as opposed to a cell phone company or an auto company or a hotel or a bank or whatever, why should we be any different? There's a service that we're providing for our students. And I understand education is different than other services, different than other commodities, but the fact that we think we're different is what's going to cause our downfall. We really need to be part of that. So very, very, very good thought. So let's talk about the study for a little bit. So what brought this study about?
If I can, Chris, I would be happy to answer that. Longmire and Company has done a series of nationally co-sponsored studies, generally on the hot button items of the day. Whatever key points that folks in higher education want to know, we generally try to put our finger on the pulse of that. So the last study that we did a study on parents' influence. Everybody knows, how important parents are. We wanted to find out exactly how much. And one of the major findings that we found from that study was not just from parents, but we got information from both parents and prospective students, and they told us that there was issues with the customer service that they were receiving. So that led us to this study on customer service, so we could find out how an institution was doing across a whole variety of different brand touch points, not just how the admissions office are doing or not just how one group was doing, but campus-wide. So in essence, they could create a benchmark, if you were, on how they were doing as far as providing customer service all the way across the board.
And I would add to that too that one of the things that we found is that whatever service they get pre-enrollment, they see that as predictive of what they would get post-enrollment, so they will reject colleges on that basis.
So let me tell you a bit about what the study measured, actually, Chris. We explored the experiences and the interactions that prospective students and their parents had with a wide range of people all over the campus. For example, the admissions office, housing, food service, security, campus life offices, and even groundskeeping. So then we also captured the student and parents' perceptions of the college's commitment to providing a high level of service. So are they really committed to the service or not? And then we wanted to also know how those perceptions and experiences would relate to or would influence the student's college selection process. Would it really influence their decision? And so we actually captured over 150 data points on the survey. Lots of questions.
I think you brought up a really interesting point, talking about the fact that it's not just the admissions office that's important from a customer service perspective. We're the front door of the university in a lot of cases, and we're the first line of folks that the public will deal with in a lot of cases, whether it be folks who are contacting us or we're out at a high school visit or whatever. But as they're walking around campus, they are interacting with, folks in the dining hall, folks, the grounds crew, all of those kinds of things. So I think that's a really important thing to include. So let's talk about some of those findings.
Yes, the study actually had the students and parents rate each office, kind of each area, on a scale from 1 to 10. So we got some very thorough and interesting information on each office.
All right, so let's talk about what we found.
It was really interesting, Chris, because what we were wanting to look at was not only capturing a number or a set of numbers about how well colleges were providing customer service or not. Just capturing those numbers by themselves would just tell us something, but it wouldn't tell us more than we needed to know. We needed to know how does the higher ed industry compare to other industries. Once we get a reference point, that gives us an indication of how well we compare. Consumers are out there consuming products and services from all different kinds of industries, including the higher ed industry. So what we did was we captured overall satisfaction scores of institutions nationwide, and then we also compared those to industries for whom we also had other data that has been collected. And can you see the screen there that shows the different kinds of industries? When we go on college campuses, we actually reveal this information on a step-by-step basis, and we ask the audience, which are typically college admissions counselors or higher education enrollment managers, we ask them to guess which industry shows up on top, and then next, and then next. And it's really an interesting exercise because they get it right most of the time. They will say, who do you think out of this group, and this is a jumbled mess of all of these different industries that we show them down at the bottom of the slide, and we say, who's tops? And they'll all guess hotels. And then we'll say, who's next? Well, then usually it becomes banks or department stores or so on and so forth. And it's amazing that our own industry, the people who we're asking this question, don't mention colleges until it's almost to the bottom. As a matter of fact, we get wireless phones services. Some people rate them higher than colleges in this exercise. But this is really how it shakes out. Hotels are top ranks, then banks, department stores, even the United States Post Office gets better consumer ratings than what consumers are giving higher education. And then finally, it's colleges that are only higher than wireless companies. So it's kind of frightening that when these consumers are consuming our services, they look at us as not nearly as high as all of these other industries.
Yeah, that's so I'm actually fascinated by the fact that we would self-identify as being on the bottom of that list.
It's interesting. We go to ACT typically, the Enrollment Planners Conference. We presented there 3 years in a row, and we presented this information to a big group. There were about, I don't know, 150 enrollment managers in this group. That we played this game, and at the end of it, they're really kind of self-reflective about, really, did we all just say that we're not better than the United States Postal Service?
That's terrifying, terrifying, terrifying. So, so where are we underperforming? What are we doing wrong?
Well, one of the things that students and parents say that students say colleges don't get to know and to understand them well enough during the process. Even while they're a prospective student, we don't attempt to meet their individual needs as a student. And so the whole personal interest category there. We asked prospective students if there was a point at which they felt a college had taken a personal interest in them during the enrollment process, and only 1/3 of them said yes. Just a third said yes, that they felt that there was a personal interest, and over half of them in the study said no. So that's a bit of a telling bit of information, and you know, it just it lets us know that you know, students are giving us an indication of how much or how little a college prioritizes them in this process. How high is the student in this priority? And how well are colleges committed to really serving them?
And Chris, if I may, we ran into something else. We've also found when talking to the colleges and universities that were all part of this study, almost to an institution, they would overestimate what they thought they would provide as far as a level of service. They say, oh, once we have people on campus, we do a great job and everything's fine. And I would always push back, well, how do you know that if you don't measure it? We might do a study for you and find out you came out on an average of 7.5 or 8. But what if your closest competition is at 9.2 or 9.5? So we told them just how critical it was to be able to benchmark that data. And when we got done with the study, we found out just how many badly overestimated just how well they really thought they were doing.
Let me add to that, if I may, Chris. Many years ago, before we got working in the higher ed industry, I personally worked in the banking business. I was hired in the banking business as a marketing director for a couple of large banks back in the early 80s. In that period of time, the United States government was deregulating the banking industry. It used to be like we all offered the exact same products at the exact same price. And I had actually gotten a degree in marketing and went to work for another company that was all about marketing before getting into the higher ed industry. And before getting into the banks. And what I saw is the difference between the industry I came out of and into the banking industry that had been regulated was they built their products and they built their service and they built their customer interaction around the needs of the bank. They were all into what makes sense for us, what's most convenient for us. If you wanted to open a bank account, you sat in front of the personal banker in the lobby. And then if you said, I want a credit card, they said, well, you have to go upstairs to the 4th floor and talk to the credit card company. And then if you said, hey, I want to know how to work with customer service here or something, well, you have to go to a different location to talk to customer service or call a different phone number. Now, does that sound at all familiar? Colleges are like that. We were working with a college in an interactive training workshop, and we do a lot of role playing in that. And I saw something there that was fascinating. There was a role play between a college counselor and another more seasoned enrollment professional. And the seasoned enrollment professional was playing a student and asking a lot of questions to the counselor. And the counselor and that person asked the counselor, hey, I need to talk to you about financial aid. And the counselor said, oh, Well, you'll have to go over there to the financial aid office. They will help you over there. Well, there's two things happening there. One is that there's already this implication of a silo, between one department and another, which isn't very customer service centric. And the other thing that this enrollment person said at the end of the debrief was he was counseling her on maybe how she should change her phrasing. He said, why don't you just say, go to the financial aid office, we'll help you out there, not they will help you out there. So, I mean, that was one thing. We see a lot of institutions designing how they deliver their customer service through what is most convenient to them, the institution, the organization, not the student itself. And I know there's a lot of one-stop shops that are cropping up throughout the industry. That's wonderful. That gets to that issue of let's deliver it in the way that is most convenient to the student.
That's a very good point. On our end, we have a couple of graduate assistants who work in our office who handle all of a good chunk of our email, our main enroll at inbox. And the first thing that I tell them when I bring new grad students on board is we've got to find a way to answer the question. It's really easy to forward an email. It's really easy to forward that phone call. It's really easy to point folks to another office on campus. But just customer service 101 is get that answer. Use we, as you said. Let me find that answer out and get back to you. Don't always push that off on other folks, because students and parents don't see the silos that we see. They don't, and that's something that we've talked about on Admissions Live. I feel like it comes up every month. We talk about how the public sees admissions and financial aid and faculty and the library and the dining halls all as one unit. They see us all as X university, X college, and we've got to really think like that in order to be effective at what we do.
Well, and also the very interesting part of all this, and the telling thing, as a person who has worked in higher ed and admissions for a long time, is that students and parents will change their mind when they have not had a good experience. They can have maybe 5 really good experiences, and then one bad experience will suddenly make them question everything about the institution, everything that they know, and then before you know it, they might be on the fence again and ready to choose someplace else. And that's very important, and that's something enrollment managers and presidents and even board members need to understand this and learn and figure out ways how to make the campus work better as a unit.
Now, Karen, I want to address something that you mentioned there. And by the way, if you want to get a hand on this study, we tweeted it out. I forgot to mention it at the top of the show. But if you go to Twitter, to the Higher Ed Live Twitter account, there's a link to the PDF of the study, so you can kind of follow along. But one of the questions that you asked, was there a specific isolated experience with the college that was pivotal in your decision to attend or not attend? And more than a quarter of the folks who responded said yes, there was an instance that impacted them. That seems like a pretty significant number to be swayed by seemingly a single interaction.
It happens all the time, and a kind of a good analogy is if any one of your viewers has had a friend, and they had a friend for years, and they had wonderful times. They traveled, they did whatever. They were really good buds, okay? And then something happens, something negative, let's say. Somebody says something, somebody does something, and that drives a giant wedge between the relationship. Well, for that friend who was wronged or feels bad about the other person, if you ask that person, tell me about so-and-so, they're not going to tell you about the 10 years that they had in a great friendship. They're going to tell you about that thing that happened that drove their lasting impression of that person. Same thing happens here in higher ed. You don't know where that's going to happen. You don't know where that impression is going to be made, but it's going to be a lasting impression, and it could be a good one or it could be a bad one, and it could drive an enrollment or drive an enrollment away.
That is a fantastic point. I was just frantically scribbling because I thought that was fantastic. That's a really, really good analogy. So, what are the implications of the kinds of things that we're doing wrong?
Karen, you want to take that one?
Well, thinking about this for a second. So, you know, an implication is that it gives the student an indication of how much or how little priority the college places on them. Again, it's all about the priority. Does the student care, or does the student feel as if they're getting care from the institution? And when we ask students whether they believe that the college was placing a priority on them and on all of its students, only about 45% of the students said yes, definitely they felt that way. 45%. So, you know, that's the other half who feels unsure about that, about how highly they're viewed by the institution, or how high of an importance is placed upon them. So, you know, this just shows that there's a lot of room for improvement, lots of room, and it shows again why colleges are possibly much lower on the list that we showed earlier about, you know, in the industry and customer satisfaction.
Yeah, Chris, if I could just add too, and this will probably surprise no one, but the schools that scored the highest marks and had the best grades on customer service were the ones that were, you know, increasing enrollment every year, year after year, and the ones where the scores weren't where they wanted to be were the ones that may be struggling to put fannies in the seats.
I think Karen, you made a really good point about that sort of that caring piece. I had a Twitter discussion with my cell phone company this weekend about upgrades and all those kinds of things. I don't anticipate that my cell phone company is going to care about me. I don't anticipate that the electric company is going to care about me. I do expect that my college is going to care, because we sell that. We sell the fact that this is, it's more than, oh, you're buying a car, and you know this time you're going to buy a Toyota, and next time you're going to buy a Hyundai or whatever. You're selling this sort of lifetime connection between you, the student, and us, the school, and your parents, and the alumni community, and the mascot. Do you know, does Toyota have a fuzzy mascot? I don't think they do. But, you know, we sell mascots, and we sell that experience of caring, which is why which is then sort of going back to what I said earlier about what makes us different than the other sorts of industries, that we are different in that respect, and that it is more of a lifetime experience that we're selling. And I, as an admissions guy who hates the sales thing, I get it, but we are selling that care piece, so we've got to back that up.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I completely agree, Chris. There's an old saying out there that is, people may forget what you did, and people may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that is so important in the relationship that we have with our prospective students as well as our current students. And you used the operative word there, is care. Do we care about them? Are we doing things that would indicate to them that we care? And so that really is what gets to it. It is an emotional thing, in addition to knowing certain things, feeling certain things, and how you're treated is so important.
Okay, so how much impact does this customer service have on the selection decision? You know, I mentioned that stat that, where was it? A quarter of students say that it was, you know, they had an isolated experience that was pivotal. How much did you see of that?
Well, Chris, what we found with this study and you know, this chart that you're looking at, that, you know, over half it had some impact, but for over 20% it was significant. And if it's significant, then it's the driving factor in their enrollment decision. So all of them had some degree of interaction and realized it was important. It was very important for 20%, but even if that number was lower, if you look at just 20% and look at, you know, what that means in enrollment numbers, if you can take care of that 20% and provide them with the highest level of customer service, that's going to be the thing that's going to make the difference for you. And when we shared that information with colleges, and we made some specific recommendations on things that they could do to help provide better customer service, it was very helpful to them.
So we're gonna come up on time soon. So we're gonna, what can we do? Like, what can we, as admissions folks, what can we do to do this better?
Well, let's talk about admissions folks, and let's also talk about the college in general. There's two levels you can deal with improving customer service. One is at the ground level, and one is at a high level. At the ground level, it's just doing the things right to serve the student properly, making sure that you have all of the processes and procedures in place that support the initiative to treat students well, to handle their problems effectively. One of the things that we learned in this study was how much those processes don't currently exist on campus colleges throughout the United States. We got 5,000 responses to this study, and it was a good cross-section of students across the board dealing with all types of colleges in every state in the country. And what we found is that when students had problems, and we asked, did you notify the college that the problem exists? Only 40% said that they even told the college they had a problem. Other data in the report suggested more didn't do that because they didn't know how to do that. I mean, if you have a problem with your postman, who do you go talk to? The President of the United States? You know, and who knows who you go talk to? You know, and that's the same was holding true in higher ed. And among those who actually did register a problem with the college, only 30% of them said the college even attempted to solve or resolve the problem. I don't know what happened to the other 70%, but they didn't even try to resolve it. And then among those who did try to resolve it, only 30% it was resolved to the student's satisfaction. Well, typically what that means is the processes aren't even in place. You got to give somebody an avenue to register a problem and get it fixed. So that's ground level kind of stuff. So any college needs to look at how can we help students on a day-to-day basis, ground level basis. The other thing is at a higher level. It's like changing the culture. How do you get a groundskeeper, for example, when some prospective student comes up to him or her and says, "Where is Murphy Hall?" Well, typically the groundskeeper is going to stop and look at him and point. Okay, well, what if the groundskeeper dropped their rake and said, "Here, come here for a second," walked about 100 feet down the sidewalk and said, "See that building over there that's behind this building right here? That's it." That's a different kind of a customer service. How do you get that to happen? Well, that's a high-level thing. You can go try to tell everybody on campus, "Hey, we need to do a better job." If you don't have the support of the president or some really high-level people, that isn't going to happen. So how do you get that done? There's strategies that colleges have used. We have one college that we work with that did a very ingenious thing. They couldn't get that high-level support, and what they did, because it was just too much inertia to try to get faculty and the president to realize that customer service was so important and how to treat their prospective students so well when they were on campus. So they devised something that was just fascinating and very effective. When prospective students show up on campus, they give them a bright red folder, and they put some stuff in there. But what's in that folder doesn't make any difference. What makes a difference is that everybody else on campus can see this person walking around with a bright red folder, and everybody else on campus, they haven't been told what to do. They've just said, know that if you see somebody with a bright red folder, they are checking us out. Please help them be on your best behavior. They're a guest on our campus. Treat them well. That single thing had a high-level impact. People started doing that. Groundskeepers started doing what I said earlier. It's just amazing. So you can handle it from the ground up or the high down, whichever way you can get it, but you've got options to do it both ways.
I love it. Karen, Rick, any thoughts?
I can just remember on a campus where I worked, again, have you ever tried to call your campus main phone line and see what happens? See if you see how long it takes to reach a person, see how long it takes, to hear a voice, a real voice. A campus where I worked decided to just get rid of the whole phone the automated phone system with the menu selections and just have a person answer the phone. And people really, really liked it. I mean, you would think in today's age of automation that, you know, we would think it would be more efficient, but no, people liked the person answering the phone.
Yeah, I mean, again, from our perspective, we get a lot of very good response where we're responding to emails during the day, or even I'll be sitting on my couch in the evening and I'll have my laptop open. I'll just pop in and I'll respond to a couple of emails in our Enroll and we'll usually get a response back saying, "Wow, I'm so glad someone got right back to me." For just a simple question. It doesn't have to be, a big. It doesn't have to be a complaint. It doesn't have to be a problem. Just a simple, hey, do I need to send this transcript, or do you have a X major? Just to be able to get back and say, yeah, here you go. Here's a link. Do you want more information? Speaks volumes for what you're going to get. And again, talking from a big place like we are, the assumption is that it's, you're just a number, and the more you can do to debunk that, the better off you're going to be.
And if I can just say one last thing, Chris, and that is that providing great customer service translates into more enrollment. It translates into revenue. It translates into more retention. So it has a money impact. And when you think about it, providing great customer service actually doesn't have to cost the college one dime. It doesn't have to cost anything. Providing great customer service is free, but the revenue benefit is tremendous.
And if I could add just one last closing thought, and one of the things that we're constantly telling our higher ed clients is you need to measure it. You have to be able to find out how you're currently doing with your customer service so you can find out where the gaps might be so you can fix it. But last parting thing, measure your customer service, because you need to find out where you are, and so you can make make improvements and make changes and make it better.
Yeah, you can never assume that you know what it is that your particular population is looking for. With maybe you have a real serious parking issue that you don't even realize is a problem until it's really brought to your attention that it's more of a concern than you think it is. So yeah, survey, and assess. Not that, hey, assess things should be something that we should be telling you to do. You work in higher ed, you should probably be already assessing things. But yeah, the good assessment is your best weapon.
Yeah, and compare yourself to others. Yourself to others to give you some reference.
All right. We are going to wrap up as I'm running out of time. I do want to thank Karen and Rick and Bob from Longmire for taking some time with us today. Lots of good information, and again, the study's out there. I will send out the tweet again with the link to the study. Admissions Live will be back in 2 weeks with Nicole Lentini. Thanks, as always, to our program sponsors, M. Stoner and Chegg and ACU, and Welcome to College. And coming up, next is Wednesday on Student Affairs Live. Heather Gasser will talk about how we can serve the trans population better. Get reminders about this and other great shows by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter. You can browse the archives at higheredlive.com or subscribe to the Higher Ed Live podcast on iTunes. I'm Chris Dorso, back again next month, next year, 2015, with more from Admissions Live. Thanks for watching, everybody.